Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 30.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have an interview with Joe Saul-Sehy. He's a former financial planner, and he's also a father of twins who are currently in college. He's going to tell us a little bit about his college story and how he's dealing with the cost of college and saving and all those types of things. So it's a great in-the-trenches story from someone that is currently in the college process. He's also a podcaster and has a great show that you can go check out. And then following that, I have a question I hear an awful lot about getting taxes done in order to be able to file your financial aid forms. So we're going to answer the question about, do you really need to get your taxes done, and take it from there. So before we jump into it, though, I'd like to remind you that we do have show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege/30. And that stands for episode 30. So if you want to get more information or the details on the links as we talk about them, we take the notes for you and put them up on our website. Without any further ado, let's jump into the interview with Joe. All right, today we're sitting down with Joe Saul-Sehy. He is the co-host of Stacking Benjamins. It's a great podcast where you can learn about all different aspects of money in a very entertaining way. I highly recommend we go and check out that podcast, but not right now. First, let's go through, and Joe is going to talk today a little bit about college and college planning with us. So welcome, Joe.
Hey, am I really here, Brad? I'm really on the podcast.
You really are.
I'm tingly.
Oh, great. Well, you don't know much about my podcast then.
Yeah, what we're really going to talk about is how I lost all my hair because I have twins that are 19, right?
That's usually a side effect. All right, so I guess before we jump into you and the twins and the whole college process, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, because I think that's relevant to the whole story. So how did you get into podcasting, and what's your area of expertise and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, wow, it's fun, and thanks for having me on the show, Brad. I really love the show and what you do here. So I was a financial planner for 16 years myself, and I worked with about 175 families to help them reach whatever their goals were, and college was one of those goals. And I when I was maybe 14 or 15 years in the business, one of my mentors wrote a note to us saying he was leaving the company. And as you know, Brad, in the world of finance, when people leave a company, they usually do so at midnight, right? And the next morning they're working for a different company. This wasn't the case. He wrote a note and said, I'm 35 years old. I work 16 hours a day. I don't know what I really want to do with my life, and I know that this is something I like, but there's other things out there that I want to explore. And he actually went on and he climbed Mount Everest twice and climbed almost every single one of the highest peaks on Earth, and now he owns an adventure travel company in his 40s. So I was a little older than him. I was turning 40, and I was thinking about his letter and about how I like being a financial planner. I didn't love it. And so I sold my business, and we had this opportunity to move. So we moved halfway across the United States. I started taking classes to become a teacher and decided that, the part of financial planning I like was something I did on the side for the firm that I was with called Ameriprise, and a big national firm. And I was one of 12 people that did media for them. So I liked talking to the media. I liked writing. I liked all that stuff. So I started writing financial articles. And then I started thinking, well, why don't we start a podcast with my partner? We call him OG. And so we've had the Stacking Benjamins podcast now for about a year and a half.
Great. So now let's talk a little bit about the kids then. So do you feel like your financial planning background prepared you for what college process ensued?
I don't know that anything really can. I knew what to expect. Let's put it that way, Brad. I knew what to expect, and I also felt like I had savings. And by the time we got to college, I had savings in many different places. I think I started off wrong. I think I hit a bunch of the wrong walls, but I think overall, my kids are sophomores in college now, and I think we're going to live through it. I think I'm actually going to see the other side.
Great. So it sounds like the kids are thriving. So where are they now?
My son is at the University of Texas. He's in the electrical engineering program. My daughter is in journalism and media and public relations, and she's at the University of Arkansas. And because we live in Texarkana, which is part Texas, part Arkansas, part Louisiana, we're right on the border. Arkansas is considered an in-state school for us, even though I live 800 yards into the state of Texas. So both my kids are at in-state schools.
Great. So that's one way, obviously, of keeping the costs down.
Absolutely.
So let's kind of start at the beginning then. So when you had a high school sophomores and juniors, how did your process start, and what went well and what didn't go so well?
Well, even before that, when my kids were born, we when you're a financial planner and you're helping people all the time manage their money, and you see twins and they're yours, right? You know that 18 years coming is going to be this big ball of outflow when it comes to money. So initially, that my big thing was to start saving as soon as we possibly could. And at that point, I had not been a financial planner very long. Money was tight. My wife was just starting her career. And so my managers convinced me to purchase a life insurance policy because I needed one anyway, and to save for college that way, because they were teaching me how to do that. So we bought something called a variable universal life policy, and we started saving into that. And I'll say that worked. That worked okay for us. It's probably not the way that I would recommend people go. And I see in the popular press, there's so many people out there that just say, never do this thing, never do that thing. We were killing two birds with one stone. I get that. I also understand when people say don't use a life insurance policy as a savings account. I get that, but directionally, we started off saving for college that way. Later on, we added 529 plans, which I think for us ended up being a better way to go.
Right. And just to clarify, I mean, I do obviously a lot of college planning.
Yeah.
And of the 150 families I've worked with, life insurance made sense 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So it does make sense just like most strategies, they make sense for some.
Well, I get frustrated when people say, never do this and never do that, because as a guy who was in the trenches like you, Brad, that people say, well, that's a bad product. That's a bad device. The device rarely is bad. The usage of the device is what's bad. And every product, every type of every instrument has a use. And the question is the product bad? The question is, am I using it right? And I think directionally for us, it was okay. We were a 2-income family. We were in a fairly high tax bracket. We didn't yet have any savings, so we needed the life insurance. We needed to put the savings away. So I would say I probably wouldn't go that way with myself at this point in my situation. But I'm with you. Life insurance can be quite a tool.
Right. So then you're started saving early. When did the conversations about college start in your family, as far as the serious, well, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to study, that kind of stuff?
We've always had the expectation with our kids, which is different than me, that they were going to do something after high school. Maybe not college. Could have been a trade school. There could have been some type of vocational training. But in our family, it was always high school was not going to be the end of your education. So in middle school, we started talking about just different colleges. We would try to take them. Cheryl and I met at Michigan State. Go Spartans! And so we'd take them and we'd walk around the campus and we'd tell stories about the different classes that we had on campus, and they started asking questions about how college worked. At the end of the kids' sophomore year, well, let's back up. they took the PSAT in middle school, and also my son in 8th grade took the ACT for the first time he was at an all boys school, and took a version of the ACT then too. So we started getting them used to the testing that they were going to take their junior year very early, and actually sophomore year they even both took the ACT for the first time. We started visiting colleges between sophomore and junior year, and we took a trip east and went and saw 9 different schools between here and Boston, and really made it our summer vacation where we looked at different schools.
And what was the result of that? Did you think that was a worthwhile
endeavor? It was very worthwhile. Obviously, they didn't go to any of those schools, Brad.
Yes.
They didn't go to any of them, but we started being able to compare. And I tell people to start early because we were able to start comparing the different sales pitches that you got. And you also saw that these are sales pitches, I mean, these are schools putting their best foot forward, and you kind of learned what questions to ask, because some schools would omit things that other schools said, like class size. In some schools, they didn't want to tell you that your kids were going to be in huge classes, so they wouldn't talk about class size. Other schools, like William and Mary is an example, that's all they talked about all the time, was how small every class was, and they hammered it home. So you got a good feeling back and forth. I also learned a lot about my kids. I thought my son, who's in electrical engineering now, I thought that MIT would be a great fit for him. He was an all-A student. He's very cerebral. He's very, very proud to be a geek. So I thought that the way that MIT is different than most schools, it'd be great. Man, we went there, Brad. He could have been more bored. He absolutely hated it. And so we started learning about them. And also when we went to Boston College, we showed up at Boston College, and I had no idea that my kids were going to love the Catholic University. I was very surprised by that. I also learned that as we started looking at public and private schools, so we took a different trip out west. For my wife had a conference, and we went and we visited Stanford, and we were going to visit Berkeley. We were on our way toward Berkeley, and Cheryl was driving, and I'm looking through the papers, and I said, I don't think we need to go to this, because here was just the cost comparison. Berkeley, for us being out of state, was going to be $55,000. University of Texas, which isn't cheap, I'll tell you that, is under $25,000, and Arkansas, where my daughter goes, is closer to $20,000. So private schools like Stanford, I kind of get that a private school might offer something that a public school won't. And there are also lots of there's also additional grants, additional funding.
Right. I was going to say, one of the things they offer is scholarships that a lot of out-of-state publics don't offer.
Yeah, to kind of bring that cost down. But when I looked at Berkeley, I understand that Berkeley might be better than Texas or Arkansas, but is it worth double? I'm not sure that it was worth double the expense, and that was a big aha for us. And my kids started grasping that cost is definitely a factor of where we're going to go to school.
Right. Now, so you're starting to talk about cost. What was your family philosophy as far as how you divide the cost? How much does mom and dad pay compared to the kids? And what is your philosophy on loans that you applied with your family?
Well, I feel very lucky that Cheryl and I can afford to pay for college for our kids, and she and I actually have disagreed on this point. And like any family, if mom is not happy, nobody's happy. So in our personal family, we pay for all of it. Now, my kids have jobs. My kids have jobs in school. My kids also had jobs when they were in high school. We give them almost no money for anything over and above the cost of tuition and room and board. They have to take care of all those things with their own money. I had student loans. My wife had student loans. I really didn't want my kids to go through that. For undergraduate school, here's our deal. With undergraduate, we're going to pay for it. any graduate school is completely on their own. And my kids have known that since the time that they were sophomores in high school, that if you're going to do graduate school, which we would definitely encourage, especially for like the electrical engineering, you're going to be paying for that.
Right. Well, somebody other than you is going to be paying for it because, again, there's a lot of, and just for the audience out there, there's a lot of strategies you can use to pay for grad school. In the technology areas, grad school can be paid by working at the college and being a TA or a research assistant, a teacher assistant, all that kind of stuff. In some of the other areas, it can be paid by your employer for like MBAs and that kind of stuff. So and the students can borrow a lot of money. If you're going on for a professional degree, the loan spigot's open wide. Not that I'm saying you should, but I'm just saying there is that opportunity.
Well, and that's when they start to make more sense too, right? Because if you're going into a graduate program in something like electrical engineering, or what you said, Brad, is what my son actually wants to do, is MBA. His goal was to have an undergraduate degree where he can get his hands dirty, and then have a graduate degree on how to run a business in that area. That was the key. Initially, he was thinking about going into business. You know, this is something that I think that we actually did a good job of. We screwed up some things, but one thing we did was talked about the cost benefit analysis on a college education. And we went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website to look at different jobs and how much they would pay. And not that a higher paying job is a better job or is a job you should choose, but when you're going to college, what you decide to major in is going to have a consequence, and there are going to be ramifications. There's going to be jobs that you can get and jobs that you can't get. So I was often disturbed when I had clients that would tell me, well, my job as a parent is to just be supportive of whatever my child decides to do. And I'm thinking specifically of one family where the son was going into film studies, and they had paid for 7 years of college by the time I met them. And the kid had no prospects of making any money anytime soon. And they just kept piling money into this black hole. And I just wanted my kids to know the cause and effect of what their decision making would be.
Right. So both your son and your daughter are pretty focused as far as they knew what major they wanted going in. They didn't have an undecided situation.
So my daughter started off in pre-med, and because she liked journalism, the area that she's in now, and she liked medicine. She liked both of them. So when we looked at the two of those jobs, one paid, could pay a couple $100,000 a year, could pay over $100,000 a year right out of college. It could pay more, even though you're going to have a lot of education after the first 4 years, right? Where a journalism degree might pay $35,000 and you're going to work tons and tons of hours, and it's going to be uber competitive. You might have a job today, you might not have a job tomorrow. So when she started off in the medical stuff, she was very excited. Then she hit chemistry, Brad.
Aha.
And during chemistry, she realized that she was not, and it wasn't just chemistry, the other classes too. Just the basic classes she really didn't like. So at the end of her first year, at the end of last year, she actually switched. And what I like about that is that she switched to a profession that's going to be much more competitive, is going to pay a lot less, but she knows what she's getting into, and because of that, I can, she's already going for an internship at the end of her sophomore year. She's applying for all kinds of internships to try to find something that's going to give her a leg up, because she already knows, different than a lot of sophomores in college, that the career she's going into is going to be pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So to change your subject one more time here, what about scholarships? Did you guys look into scholarships both at the colleges and the private scholarships, and what was the result? And tell us that story.
Yeah, so we did receive scholarship offers, especially my son applied and almost went to Carnegie Mellon and received some great scholarship offers. My daughter received some scholarship offers in track and field at small colleges that she really wasn't interested in. We have a lot of small religious colleges in the area, and she was offered some scholarships there, and that just wasn't something that she was excited about. So scholarship wise, the scholarships at Carnegie Mellon and at NYU would have brought the cost down close to the University of Texas. Ultimately, Nick decided that he just liked the University of Texas better. And frankly, even after the scholarships, it was going to be cheaper. In terms of University of Texas, 60 something thousand students there. And my kid is a middle of the road, A average, like a lot of kids are. And I was not surprised to see he didn't get a scholarship. At Arkansas, my daughter qualified for the honors college. And we were told by everyone that she had a high enough grade point and ACT score that she would get a scholarship. And we were very surprised when she didn't get a scholarship. And we actually met with the student aid people to ask about that. And the answer we got back from 3 different people, because we really didn't trust the first guy. He not only didn't said, nope, you didn't get it, he acted like he really didn't care. So we went and talked to his boss, and we talked to someone else in the honors college, and all 3 of them said it was just the year my kids went to college, year before last, was the most competitive year at the University of Arkansas, and somehow she missed it. So not much. Now my daughter got a couple of. My daughter was in a lot of. She did a lot of volunteering and community work, and she actually had $2,000 in scholarships that were one-time scholarships, community-based scholarships here in Texarkana that she was awarded.
Okay. Now, did you guys do the FastWeb and scholarships.com and all that stuff?
We did. And I always encourage my clients to do that. And between, we applied for, I'm going to say, north of 15 different private scholarships, but usually, even if there wasn't for us now, and for the ones that we applied for, even the ones that weren't income based, there was still an income component. And because I had been a high wage earner, my wife is a high wage earner, I think we failed those criteria.
Right. So they were need-based criteria, and you obviously didn't show as high a need as you needed. Okay.
Right.
Because I think that's I deal a lot with late stage, so I'm meeting with parents of juniors and seniors, a lot of which are scrambling and saying, well, we got to get all these applications in. We got to figure out how we're going to pay. We're way behind the 8 ball here. And we should do 40 scholarship applications. Really? So, I mean, what is your thought now that you've been through the process? Do you how much time did you spend on FastWeb and scholarships.com, or or maybe the kids did the work? I don't know, but
no, that was the trade-off, was that if we were going to pay for the first 4 years of college, they were going to spend the time there. And so we actually worked together to try to make it interesting, and to show we tried to involve them as much as possible in the process. I mean, our kids, we're very open about money, Brad. So we even shared how much we had saved and where it might get tough, and the whole college plan. My kids, I feel like, are a member of that plan. Like, they know what our plan is, and they know where they fit. And I would tell parents, you don't want to scare your kids, but I see too many families where they kind of shelter their kid completely from the plan, and the college is a business decision. But so I personally think we didn't spend enough time. If I did to do over again, we didn't spend enough time looking locally. We did not spend enough time looking locally. And the thing that I think we're not doing a good enough job on right now is, I also know something, Brad, that you know very well, is that getting scholarships actually gets easier the longer your kids are in school, because they're proving in school how well they're doing, and less people apply. I mean, people after they don't get scholarships their freshman year, they think it's inevitable. And yet companies don't want incoming freshmen. They don't want to give them money. They want to lure people that are juniors and seniors. So we're not spending enough time on that now. I think we should be spending more time looking for private scholarships today for junior and senior year than we are.
Right. So there's a lot of private companies, especially like healthcare companies and nursing. They love to do that. And the reasons that they're doing it is they want to get a list of graduating nurses because they need them.
Absolutely.
And so they offer a scholarship. Now all of a sudden they've got hundreds of names and of graduating kids. They know how, they got a little bit of a resume already. They know who they can start recruiting, and it only costs them, a $5,000 scholarship, which is what a bunch of ads would have cost them anyway.
Right. Much more targeted advertising.
So I encourage scholarship starts when they're born and ends when they're done with college. And until that time, you can pursue scholarships. Whether or not you should is kind of a time question. If you'd rather, again, some families would rather write a check and just be done with it, or get a job, spend your time at McDonald's and make a for sure $8 an hour versus pursuing scholarships where you may or may not win anything.
I had one couple that I worked with when I was a financial planner, Brad, that did something that was unique, and I don't think it works for all families, but they told their daughters when they were freshmen in high school that their daughters were going to have to pay for the first year of college themselves. And they made sure, by the way, they didn't do that like my parents told me I was going to have to figure it out, and then didn't give me any tools to help me figure it out. And I'm not bitter about my parents doing that. It's just, I don't think I see other families do that too. And that's not that fair to the kid to say, hey, you're going to pay for it and good luck with that. And, but if you're really going to make this a teaching opportunity, they told their daughters they're going to pay for the first year of college and to figure it out. And then they helped them figure it out. And then their jobs went into savings and all the way through. They saved as much money as they could. And then when they were looking for scholarships, the kid knew that if I don't get scholarships, it's all going to have to be loans. So rather than have loans, they worked hard to get scholarships. And then, and this was the part I thought was kind of neat, for every A and B the kid got their freshman year on their report card, at the end of the first semester, every A and B, they reimbursed them that rate, whatever the fees were, plus the commiserate percentage of room and board, and gave them that money too at whatever the higher rate might be. So with inflation for the next semester. So if a kid got all A's their first year of college, the second year of college was then paid for by the parents. And then sophomore year junior year was paid for by the parents, and senior year, as long as they kept getting A's and B's. And Tim, my client, said, I just don't want my daughters being the one pumping the keg at the party going, my dad's subsidizing this.
Yes, exactly.
And when they got done with school, it was cool? They reimbursed, this was neat, they reimbursed then the senior year grades. So the kid had money to, go off on their own. So Tim's idea was, my kids will end up paying for no school if they get all A's and B's in college. And when I worked with Tim, it was through his oldest daughter's freshman year, and daughter was doing very well. But looking at where my kids are, my daughter had this big chemistry problem. So it was going to be tough for her financially and tough for her grades. And she's switching majors. So on top of the fact that she's not sure where her life is going, which is okay, she now also has the financial obligation on top of that. So in theory, it sounds really good. I'm just not sure it works with every kid.
Right, exactly. And that's obviously, a lot of strategies are depending on the student and how involved they are. I mean, as example, your kids did, sounds like maybe 15 college visits by the time it was all done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids out there that won't have that kind of patience. It's like, right. I'm not that interested in college, quite honestly, that you're going to drag me around to 15 colleges.
No, my kids thought it was fun. They thought it was a good time.
Right. And there's a lot of kids that do think it's fun, and it's their life and they want to do it.
Yeah.
But I have worked with families where it's kind of the opposite is, well, I'm going to college because I don't know what else to do, and I'm not as invested. So the parents are like, well, we can't put too much resistance in the way, or he's going to be on our couch for the rest of his life.
Yeah, boy.
Okay, so you pursued scholarships. What do you think in your overall process, where do you think the biggest mistakes were for you that maybe parents of high school kids right now could learn from?
I think not start. It's funny. I didn't save enough early enough. I mean, that's what everybody says, right?
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, but that's totally true. If I would have saved more money earlier, and I would have used automatic ways of saving, I think that would have been better. I think looking more locally, as I mentioned before, was a good idea. I probably wouldn't have gone to as many out-of-state private schools all over the nation had I known where my kids were going to end up. I think it gave them a good idea of the breadth of options that are out there. But really, we spent a lot of time at schools that weren't even in the ballpark. So maybe narrowing the list a little better before we went on all these college visits might have been a better idea.
So speaking of visits, did you visit the local colleges before you went on those trips?
We visited the local schools midway through, and the University of Arkansas, we weren't even going to visit, Brad, because I don't know. I'm from Michigan originally. I've only lived here 5 years, and I thought University of Arkansas just doesn't sound. And I'm not ripping the school for those people listening that live in Arkansas. I'm not ripping the school, because what I found out is we have this wonderful school in our backyard that actually is in the same town or very close to Walmart headquarters, and the Walton family is pouring tons of money in this school so that they have this gem. And you look at all this building going on, almost 25% of that college now is the honors college, because the Waltons are throwing so much. And I had no idea, but we weren't even going to go, just because I had this thought in my head that it wasn't going to be it. So about halfway through, we went to Arkansas and into the University of Texas. University of Texas also had a horrible, but probably the worst college visit program of any that I visited. And if I would have been basing it just on that, and instead of stuff that we had read ahead of time, my son probably wouldn't be there, because their college visit program was awful.
Right. All right. I interrupted you. What were some of the other changes or mistakes that people could learn from?
The last thing I had to say had nothing to do really with a mistake. Talk about changing the course. But the other thing we deal with right now is car on campus. And this is something that I think every college family wants to know. And it's the most conversations we've had with other college parents. I never talked about when I was doing college planning. I didn't think it was a big deal, but should your kid have a car on campus? That has been like the hot topic of everything for us. And our answer has been no. There's no reason to have a car. And our friends that have kids that are my son and my daughter's age that took their car to campus, you know what the car does? The car sits there and does nothing. The only time it's a pain in the butt is when they want to come home for breaks. I generally have to go get them, or we pay for the bus. But car on campus, in most campuses, I just don't see it.
And how far away are they actually?
My daughter's 4.5 hours away, and my son's 6 hours away.
Okay. So have they looked into any sort of ride sharing or anything that might get them closer than, so you pick them up an hour away instead of 5 hours away?
Yeah. But so my son, there's only 2 other kids from our local school that go to the University of Texas. So for him, he takes the bus to Dallas, which is halfway, and then I drive halfway to pick him up. And it's a mega bus, so it's really inexpensive. My daughter has lots of kids from here go to the University of Arkansas, and so often she's able to get a ride back home, which makes it really, really easy. And then we just help the kid with gas.
Great. All right. Well, I really appreciate all the insight you've given us. And let's start wrapping things up, but I'd like to ask you again if you've got any quick tips for families, typically 3. Could be related to what we've just talked about, or could be completely unrelated as far as families planning for college.
Yeah, sure. My first one would be college is something to survive. Don't think that even though it's this big looming thing for us, college is not something that Cheryl and I are focused on. We're focused on our retirement plans. Our goal with college is to get through it, to survive it. So your goal with college is to make it as easy as possible, and to find as many, is to just live through it so that you can fight another day on retirement. Don't forget about that. The second is, I think a lot of work that you can do is in controlling the cost of college by looking at the price tag ahead of time. I think that's the area where we did a good job, was in deciding which colleges our kids were going to go to based on the price tag versus what they were going to get. I think we made a good middle ground decision. They're not going to the to the local community. There's nothing wrong with our local community college, but they're not going there. They're going to name brand universities with places where they can get lots of help with their endeavors after college is over that maybe our local college in Texarkana doesn't have. So controlling the cost of college was good. And then the third is don't just come up with your plan as a parent. Use this opportunity with your juniors and seniors to make these teachable moments. Make sure your kid's invested in the decisions that they make. I mean, take a look at how much the degree is going to cost versus what they're going to gain from it. Talk about your savings and exactly how you save for college. Man, the more you get your kid invested in it, the better that's going to serve them when they're off on their own when they get to college.
Yes, great tips. So if people want to learn more about what you're doing, and I know you've got a great podcast and other things going on, so tell us a little bit about where people can learn more about your podcast and what you have going on.
Sure, Brad. Stacking Benjamins is totally different than your show. And your show, you are teaching people a ton about how to actually dig in and tame the cost of college. Stacking Benjamin's goal is to never teach anybody anything ever. We are.
But we have a good time anyway.
We do. Our goal on Stacking Benjamins is exactly the opposite of your show. When our idea for Stacking Benjamins was this, I like the show Car Talk. I don't learn anything about cars, but it's all about cars. And I thought there's no car talk that's for financial planning. And so my co-host OG and I and a team of, generally there's about 6 or 7 different voices on the show. It's an hour long, but it's based into segments. It's magazine style. So if you don't like one segment, just hang out for 7 or 8 minutes and we're on to the next topic. So we talk about current events and it's a very light show. But what I did, because we are all over the place, we have some shows that are based on things that I think that your audience would like. And when we talk about college planning or resume building or some of the similar topics to what you have on here, it's a good way of getting into our show. And we also have a blog that's we write 4 days a week at stackingbenjamins.com. I put together a page that's stackingbenjamins.com/taming, TAMING. And I think that'll be a great way, Brad, for your listeners to kind of dig into us if they want to explore goofier stuff than what you're doing on the show.
Right. And your topics are broad-based all over the place, not college or not just retirement and all things money, correct?
They are. I mean, to give you an example, we had Don Hahn, who is the producer of Beauty and the Beast and the new movie Maleficent that was out this spring. Also, The Lion King, he produced that. He was a Disney Imagineer. And we talked to him about where creativity meets goal setting, and about how, they want to create beautiful movies, but they got to make a profit, and about how we're like that with our families. I mean, we want to have this beautiful life, but we also want to have these goals that we set. So we take some of these quirky topics and bring them around for the average family. We had the guy on the show last spring also who broke the Cannonball Run record, Brad. And this was a guy who drove the Cannonball Run record, for people that don't know, is the record for driving illegally from New York City to Los Angeles in the shortest amount of time. And you don't do that without a ton of planning. And this guy modified the car. They put extra gas tanks in the trunk, and they had this whole network of people, and they looked at road conditions, and they tried to make sure that they were driving at times when there's hardly anybody else on the road. And anyway, it was a crazy podcast.
Yeah, so great. So I encourage anybody that's interested to check it out. I will put a link to your podcast and this specific link as well in the show notes, so people can go to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com /30, which is our episode 30, and we will have all the links to Joe's material and notes on what we've just talked about. Joe, I appreciate your time, and we had a lot of great insight, and good luck with the kids in college, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there that wants to pay for it, write me, please. And Brad, thanks a ton for having me. I love the show.
All right. Thank you much. Bye-bye.
Have a question? Brad is accepting questions from his listeners now. Record a question at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. and get it answered on one of the future episodes.
Today's question comes from a meeting I had last night with a family who is working on getting their senior into college. And they were very stressed out and were asking questions about, do I really need to have my taxes done? How do I get financial aid submitted so early? We have a hard time getting taxes in a timely manner. What should we do? And I think that question comes up a lot at this time of the year where people are starting to prep for the financial aid form, the FAFSA form. And yes, you do need to get tax information available so that you can fill out the FAFSA. It does not mean you need to have your taxes all done and filed. For many families, you can get around the problem by using estimates. What does that mean? Well, on the FAFSA, there's 2 or 3 or 4 questions, depending, again, on your situation, that reference back to your taxes. And they ask questions like, what is your AGI? And how much did you contribute to retirement? And how much did you pay in taxes? And all that information comes from a tax form. And if you have your taxes done, it's relatively simple to just go look it up. The challenge, of course, is many families will be unable to get their taxes done in a timely enough manner to meet the deadlines for financial aid. So the solution is you have to meet your deadlines. So the solution is to use some sort of estimate for your taxes and get the information you need so that you can file the FAFSA on time. So what I tell most families is let's use an estimate. So some of the things you might be able to do is use last year's taxes. For families who live on salaries or other fixed income where their income year over year doesn't change that much, a lot of times you can just use the previous year's taxes and take the numbers off of that and go ahead and put that on the FAFSA form and submit it. For other families, you might have to do a little bit of legwork because things have changed since last year. Maybe you've gotten a raise or a larger bonus or a smaller bonus for that matter. So some people take last year's taxes and just correct them as best they can based on what they know currently. The reality is a lot of families can get relatively close estimates, and close is probably good enough to start because you have the opportunity, once you file the FAFSA, to go back and correct the FAFSA once you have a more accurate tax form. So the timeline for a lot of families is let's use estimates in late January so that we can meet our deadlines. And some colleges might have a February 1st or February 15th deadline. So in January, you use estimates, put those estimates into the FAFSA, and you submit it. You do not have to submit your taxes to the IRS. You just need to create the forms so you can get the data. Once you are able to complete your taxes, let's say in April, now you can go back to the FAFSA with the completed taxes and change the information to more closely reflect what the taxes say and resubmit it, and the colleges will get an update on that information. Now, for a lot of families, let's say you put your income in at $101,000 AGI. And after you do your taxes and it's recalculated and it's actually $101,760. Some colleges will go back in and do some recalculation and issue you a new financial aid offer and adjust it slightly because you were off slightly. But a lot of colleges, if you're that close, may just ignore it and say, well, what we offered is close enough. We're not going to go back and recalculate it. Now, if on the other hand, you estimated your AGI, let's say at $101,000, and after doing taxes, you realize that things were much better than you realized and your income was actually $152,000 and you were off by $50,000, that's fine as well, but most colleges now will go back in, recalculate your aid offer, and probably reduce it because your income is higher than what it was originally. But the important factor here is that you always submit your FAFSA paperwork on time, or ideally, a few days early, so that you have time to recover if you have technical issues. So in other words, if your deadline is February 1st, maybe have a goal of having it done by January 27th or 28th. And then if you have a couple issues and you can't get it done until the 29th or 30th, you're still on time. I hope that helps. And again, this is a common concern, and it can certainly be worked around if you understand how the rules work. All right, that's all we have for today. I hope you enjoy the show. If you would like, we would appreciate it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a ratings and review. And remember, all of our past episodes are available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com, and show notes for this episode are also available there. That's all for today.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.